Hello guys and welcome back. Welcome back to the latest episode in our EV conversion, and you can see we're charging the car at the moment. But in this video the plan is to take you from this to this. We're going to upgrade the low voltage junction box and put some fuses in line and basically try and tidy a few things up. Stick around. So to sort out the low voltage junction box and try and tidy things up a bit, I bought two of these, and the plan is to try and mount them in there somewhere and then bring all the wires up, and they can then join onto these screw terminals. So each positive will have a fuse of its own and a screw terminal of its own, and hopefully by doing that we will be able to tidy up the rat's nest of cables that was in there before. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to raise it up. It needs to be raised up high enough that all the wiring can go around underneath, so I'm going to have to try and look for some sort of pillars to try and do that. So that's going to be kind of the next step. Get this out, get this box out of here, and oopsies, get this box out, get some pillars in and get these raised up and secured in the box. So what I'm using to space these out is these, and these are just standard crimps, but they're sort of fairly large ones. So I'm using these crimps as spacers, and I managed to find some M4, I think these are, long stainless steel screws. So I'm going to feed these up through and then just do the same as this and use the crimps as pillars. They just happen to be the right height, which means that whenever I put the lid onto this, it is below the level of the top of this box, and it just gives me a nice sturdy solid base to mount these things. And then, as I was saying, I have the room underneath for cables and so on. So I will go ahead and feed these through a wee bit tight. So what I'm going to do is to loosen up the holes and then feed the screws through like so. Okay, if I flip that over, I just have to, now I had to drill these out because they do have a little thing inside them, and of course doing that means that you have to hold them with pliers, so they're a little bit crimped possibly, but I'll line them up as best I can. So that's the spacers on, and I just have to plop this on top now. There we go. And then for the nuts, I have these nuts that have a flange on them, which means they don't go down into those little holes, which means I can actually get the beggars tightened, because I was going to use those sort of nuts. These are lock nuts, but the problem with them was they went down inside the hole and then I couldn't tighten them. I couldn't hold them or grip them to tighten them up. So these are much better. Right, well that's them all screwed in, tightened up. Now I know they're not perfectly in line. The little pillars are not perfect and they're sort of leaning over a bit, but nice and solid, not moving anywhere. So it gives me a nice good solid base to be able to screw these and tighten these up. So what I need to do now is put this back into position, somewhere about there, and bring in all the cables and start working out how to feed them up and get power and ground and so on. The way these things work is you've got multiple ground terminals, so they're all linked and all go back to the battery, the negative of the battery. Then you have a single large positive terminal, and then I presume that just goes down through here, and then the fuses bring the positive to these terminals, and that's how you get the power to these terminals. Now, whether these LEDs stay on or not all the time, I don't know. I'm assuming they only come on when a fuse blows. Not sure. I guess we'll find that out in due course. But these would be a lovely, neat solution to trying to tidy up this low voltage junction box. And hopefully will also allow enough space for these to go in, something like that. There's a couple of these modules. I might have to go underneath the fuse boxes, but we'll see. We'll see how that works out. If need be, they can go somewhere else. So I have the box secured now, and I'm starting to bring the cables in. Just bring them in slowly, bit by bit, labeling everything as I go. And it's going to be a long process. Some of these are not going to be able to go into these two boxes either. This one is I think the direct connection to the battery, and this one is the connection to ignition position 2. Ignition position 1 is going to be off this, and I know it's not ideal, but I haven't really got much choice. I don't have enough room for 3 of these in here, but I shall go ahead and get as much as I can, as neat as I can, coming into these side bits, and try and tidy all those cables up as much as possible, and then just sort of shove the microcontrollers in the middle. I may even have to put them outside of this box, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. There's 2 negative or earth connections going in and connecting to these 2 points, and then this is a positive and that's a positive. So I've managed to reduce the number of positives cables going in as well, and removed other cables that weren't being used, and basically tidying up as I go. Right, so I've kind of started making some progress on getting the connections made up here, and I've got some of the negatives already connected in. I've only got 1 positive connected in so far, but I've also at the same time trying to document the whole thing on the laptop. So I will have I'll know exactly what location. That's a diagram I drew out of the 2 fuse blocks, and I've given labels to each of the connections, each of the points. So the idea is to basically very slowly go through and connect everything, document everything as I go on the laptop here, so I know exactly what cable is going to what point and what the colour is of it, and that sort of hopefully will make it a bit easier to keep track of things in the future. And the observant of you may also notice that I've made a hole here and brought the cables out for the 2 Arduinos. Now, at some stage in the very near future, I will make a smaller box just to hold these 2 Arduinos, and possibly make it big enough to hold a 3rd one if I decide to go that way. I'll probably make it the full length of this box and just sort of coming out this way a bit. I do have a fair bit of height to work with there, that's not a problem. The reason I've got extra height here compared to the slam panel of the front of the car is because if you look at the bonnet, there's actually quite a lip in the bonnet there. So this bit comes down on the front of the slam panel, and then there's a good 2 inches, 4 centimeters, 5 centimeters, that sort of thing, something like that. So I have got a wee bit of space height wise to work with here. I'd probably make it something similar to this one, just folding up plastic and I could try to 3D print it, but I would have to do it in 2 halves because my printer wouldn't be big enough to do the whole thing. There's no point. I have the plastic. It doesn't take very long to make, and it's not very difficult to make. Okay guys, it's a bit messy with all my stuff that I'm working at, but it's coming on nicely. I'm starting to basically get all of the connections in the positions where I want them to be. This is main battery positive. I've only got one positive going into that so far, which is going to the VCU, but there will be lots more. This is ignition 2 positive, and I've got a couple of things going into that. And this is ignition 1 positive, which has ignition 1 positive has 3 or 4 things going into it. Some of them may be staying there, some of them may not. I'm not entirely sure. But one thing I've also done here is I've put in a voltage buck converter, and the reason for that is I'm not entirely happy with my Due and my Uno running off 12 volts, or actually 14.4 volts as it is with the car running. So in order to try and reduce the strain on the little voltage regulators in these microcontrollers, I have put in a buck converter which is reducing the voltage down from 14.4 volts down to around about 7 volts. They do need to be higher than 6. Well, 6 would be the minimum voltage that these things will accept. If I was applying 5 volts from the buck converter straight into the normal power input side of these things, the voltage regulator would then reduce that by another volt, so you're down to 4 volts, which is not good for them. So they need a minimum of 6, so I put it at 7. But yeah, I'm just going through. Still going to be using some of these Wago connectors because they're so convenient. Some changes to be made here once I get this box made, but I'll sort that out at a future date. My priority for now is just to get this thing running again. Right guys, there has been a lot of faffing around has gone on in the last couple of days to try and stabilize all of this, and also to get this working again, because I managed to break it. I think what happened was I dropped a bit of solder across the Arduino and bricked the Arduino. So the old one is, this one here is now dead, and the circuit board is currently just providing power to a temporary setup. So we'll have to get all this back onto the circuit board again and get rid of that Arduino. Basically, yeah, I think that's what happened. But also, I was getting the issue again where if I put the lights on in the car, the contactors would drop out. Now, I know that issue was caused by these little timer modules, and if they see any glitch at all in voltage, even if it's only a very, very tiny glitch, they seem to just drop out. So these things are, well, not to be relied upon, let's put it that way. So what I have going on here at the moment, I have this timer module is powering this latching relay to drive that contactor, and this timer module is driving that latching relay, which I still need to tidy up a bit, to drive all of these, to drive that whole block. Basically, I've been trying to separate everything as much as possible to try and make sure everything has its own fuse and so on. And in doing so, I accidentally connected some things in the wrong positions. But I think I've got it resolved now, and it appears to be all working correctly now. And every time I flash the lights and work with the lights, nothing happens. Nothing bad happens. The other thing I had to do was this little Arduino here has a wire which was originally going to vacuum sense control, and it's flickering because it's not getting any, it's not seeing any voltage. Or I need to disable that, because what I had to do was to remove the vacuum sensor from the brake pump and put in I think it came from Volvo. It's just a very simple vacuum sensor that switches contacts. So whenever it sees vacuum, it goes open circuit. When it doesn't see vacuum, it goes closed circuit. So as you can see, some time has passed, several days, and an extension to our low voltage junction box has appeared. Now, the way I've done this is just basically I've made a second box, linked it with one of our glands, and so a few cables can come into here. We can put modules into this extension to the low voltage junction box. Now, the main reason why I did not make this as a single, sort of cut down the sides and make the whole thing one solid piece, is that this is obviously sitting over a battery box, and if for any reason I need to get into this battery box, I did not want to have to dismantle the entire low voltage junction box. So I figured if I had an extension, that would be a reasonable compromise, and it means that if I ever do need to get into this battery box, it shouldn't be a major issue. The nice thing is we've been able to sort out all of the issues. I did have a few issues with this now whenever I put the whole thing back together, but we got that resolved and it's now working again. So we'll have the extension, and we have a lid for the extension, which I'm a little bit embarrassed to show you, but this is it. It did start off as just a couple of bits of plastic glued together, but what I will do is I will sort out this. I've used car body filler on it. Smooth that out and get it painted. I will make it pretty. It's just for the moment this was good enough to get the thing on the road, get the car back on the road. That is the current situation with the low voltage junction box. There will be a video coming out shortly explaining what I did wrong and what the consequences of that were. Spoiler alert, there was a loud bang and a lot of smoke, but thankfully no major harm done. But that's for another video. But for now, we have the low voltage junction box complete, as in it works. It is all put back together again. These fuse holders are working great. I do still have some labels on some of the cables, but for the most part I've just gone with writing down in the document what each of these cables does, or what each of these cables is for. So we can now move on to the next stage, which will probably be getting the BMS working. I think we're getting very close to that point where I really need to get that done. The BMS will tell me if any of the batteries, any of the battery modules are out of step with the other ones. And if they are, that would be dangerous, because it would mean that they would be either getting a very high voltage or a very low voltage in comparison to the rest. So that's something we want to avoid. One of the reasons I haven't already gone about doing that is because it means a lot of sitting on my backside, soldering and connecting, and in the cold weather that's not so pleasant. So that's one of the reasons I haven't done it already. It's one of those things I've been putting off. Also because there's an issue with how it will connect, but I'll discuss that when I get to the BMS video. But for now, the car's back in the road. Currently I've done over 1,000 miles in this car since it's been converted to EV. Something like 12 or 1,300 miles I've done. But once I got that issue with the cutting outs resolved, the car has run almost fault-free ever since. Anyway guys, hope you've enjoyed this. Any suggestions, any comments, please feel free to put them in the section below. Check out the video description below as well. There should be links there to various different things. They are affiliate links, and I do get a small percentage if anybody clicks on them and makes a purchase. So thanks for watching. Bye for now. See you next time.